5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, we ready right now. Got me feeling so free, free. Got me feeling so free, free.
Welcome back to the Side Quest Hustle. I'm your host, Shad. This is the podcast where we talk about anime, manga, comics, TV, movie shows, and more. This week, I have a special guest with me. I have Christopher Ford. He is the creator, writer, the mind behind Dark Pink Comics. Christopher, man, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Dark Pink Comics?
Sure. My name is Christopher Ford, and I am a writer. I have 3 children's books published. They're the With Dad series of books. They're kind of semi-autobiographical about me and my father and kind of just teaching life lessons, something positive for young kids of color and showing like a good positive father-son relationship. So that's kind of my introduction into writing. Also do comic reviews for comiccrusaders.com. And I have my own blog, which is creatorsfortheculture.com, which celebrates all things Black creatives. So I've been writing professionally. My first book came out in 2017. So 7 years now, but I've been writing forever since college. I've written a ton of screenplays that no one's ever seen, but we're maybe working on that. And yeah, I just love the creative process. Been a long time comic book fan, been reading comic books since the 90s. It's been something I've always wanted to do. And finally, years later, I had been sitting on Dark Pink for a long time, and it was just the time. Finally, and we're really close to making it happen, and I'm super excited to be here and super excited to talk about it.
Cool, man. That's really cool. And so you have the 3 children's books, and from what I'm reading with Dark Pink Comics, it's kind of a step away from a children's story. What inspired you to create Dark Pink Comics?
Well, I have had this idea in my head since 2006, actually. I walked into a comic book store in Houston, Texas, where I live, and I saw the cover for Daughters of the Dragon, issue number 2 from Marvel Comics. I didn't know anything really about the Daughters of the Dragon, Misty Knight and Colleen Wing, but the cover was so dope. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I definitely would say everyone go Google Daughters of the Dragon number 2. Kari Evans did the cover. It's basically Colleen with a baby blue Adidas jumpsuit on, and Misty Knight in her all red leather suit, looking like they just knocked somebody out. And I was like, who are these women and what is this comic book? I literally bought it, didn't know anything about it, just because the cover looked so cool. And I read it and I immediately fell in love with Misty Knight. I went from not knowing anything about her at all to her being one of my favorite characters of all time. And the character inspired me to want to create something in that vein, like having a strong Black female lead. I'm a big true crime fan, so having the detective elements was something that I wanted to do as well. I love the character design of her with her metal arm. So, that was something that was just visually striking to me. Some of my favorite character designs are literally Misty Knight, is Cable, and Iron Man. So they all have that kind of robotic feel to their design. So this is something that just resonates with me visually. So I wanted to throw that in as well, but I wanted to put some twists on it. I just didn't want it to be a straight up Misty Knight ripoff. So I developed her as a younger character because Misty, she's really good at her job. She's a vet, she knows what she's doing. She's super confident. She's been there, done that. So she's on it. So I wanted to create a younger person who, at the start of this story, is literally on her first case. She's fresh out of college. She doesn't know what she's doing. She admits she doesn't know what she's doing, and she's just kind of learning on the fly. And I think that's something that makes her a very relatable character and a bit of a blank canvas for the readers to be able to see something from a fresh pair of eyes and a fresh perspective, and really be able to tell like tales of growing up and like learning about the real world and how to navigate it and how to like grow up, be the person that you want to be, and just like kind of be a hero, so to speak. And I really think that she's going to be a character people can relate to a lot. Like when I talk to people about her, I kind of compare her to, she's part Misty Knight. She's part Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's part Whitley Gilbert from A Different World. And she's part Peter Parker or Miles Morales, whichever friendly neighborhood Spider-Man you relate to the most. So she has a lot of those kind of elements kind of just thrown in together into hopefully a character people can really get behind.
Cool. That's a lot to unpack there. And I want to touch on the art and the art style, the character design and everything, because that was one of the things that caught my eye whenever I first came across the page on Instagram. And it's kind of one of the things that I do. I'll search Instagram looking for new artists or new creatives, new stories, especially creators of color. And when I came across this character design and the setting and of New Orleans, a city that's very culturally rich and has a lot of lore and a lot of history there in it. Can you tell me a little bit about the art style and the artist who helped you bring this character to life?
Oh, for sure. I think really the coolest thing about this project so far for me is like I do have Kari Evans doing art for it. And it's kind of like a full circle moment from me going to seeing his cover of Daughters of the Dragon, like literally almost 20 years ago, to having him he's doing one of the covers and he's going to do the inside of the comic is like it's still kind of mind blowing to me. Like I know him now. So yeah, like his art style is very unique. Like he does a lot with angles and he knows how to draw like cool looking Black women. That's something very important to me. Like I wanted to hire like Black artists to work on this project with me. So we do have Kari Evans and we also have Karan Grant who does work for DC and Marvel. He's doing some stuff for the new Black Lightning as we speak. He's doing some John Stewart Green Lantern stuff for DC right now. He's doing he has done the Purple Rain inspired cover. Kari did the Malcolm X inspired cover. And we also have Robin Smith, who's an award-winning artist as well. She's done stuff for DC. She won awards for doing like a new interpretation of Nubia for DC, and she's doing a second part for that as we speak. And she did the Shad inspired cover. So, you know, the art style, like one of the things I really wanted to do and why I kind of set it in the 80s was to bring up like a visual style that people haven't really seen in comics too often, like the setting, the characters, the artists we have involved. You know, as being a lifelong reader of comics, I read comic books in the 80s and 90s. We weren't really like represented as much as like we are now. It's still, you know, not where it probably should be, but you look back, you know, to those times and, you know, if you didn't have a comic book store near you, you know, your only representation for Black comics was like watching Storm on X-Men on Saturday morning and then watching Static. I wanted to kind of go back to a time where that's not really covered or doesn't have a lot of Black representation. And, you know, the 80s is, it's a pretty cool time. You know, you got your, you know, the distinct fashion, the music, you know, all of the cool Black cultural things that were happening in that time. We'll have something that you really didn't get to see. They weren't doing that stuff. Like Marvel and DC weren't doing that in the 80s. So, you know, we're just going to take it back, you know, for all the 80s babies out there and hopefully come up with something that's like really cool visually.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think, because I mean, the 80s, at least when I think of it, I think the emergence of hip hop and the emergence of hip hop style and all the creative Black sounds. And then you chose the city of New Orleans as a setting. And like I said, New Orleans is one of my favorite cities in the US. It's, you know, as far as food, culture, sound, it's unique in its own right. Can you tell me a little bit behind picking New Orleans as the setting for your story?
Sure. My father is from the New Orleans area, so like I've been to New Orleans a lot. I live in Houston, but I have family there, so I spent a lot of time there. It's like you said, it's a great city. I love me some Cajun seafood, so I always down for that wherever I am. So that it's a part of like how I grew up, and it's pretty much like the sister city to Houston. So it's something that a place that I'm very familiar with, like on a personal level, but also like I wanted to, have a unique place because, a lot of comic books, at least ones that, that kind of set in like reality, they're set in New York or a fictionalized version of New York. So I wanted to not follow in those footsteps and do something like completely different, something that I am familiar with, like on a personal level. And also New Orleans is a great setting if you want to do like a noir supernatural style story. Like you really can't beat New Orleans. So it was literally just like the perfect place to tell the kind of story that I wanted.
So the next question, talking about some of the aesthetics and some of the uniqueness, the main character of the story has a golden mechanical arm as well as a golden pistol. Can you tell me about these aspects of the story, if you can, without giving too much spoilers? Where does the gold arm and the gold pistol come from?
Yeah, without getting a little too spoilery, because eventually, like, I want to tell like the origin story of how this came to be, but I can reveal that her arm is something that was made by her father. Her parents, the thing that kind of motivates her, the reason why the things are happening in this comic is because her parents go missing in New Orleans. And so she moves there and becomes a private detective to basically try to learn how to figure out what happened to her parents. Her father made the arm for her because she had an incident when she was younger that caused her to lose her arm. And her father is like a tech whiz. He is a former, used to work for the MI6. He's British. And he creates the arm for her when she was younger. And there's a lot going on with the arm that will be revealed as kind of things go along, but it's not just functioning as an arm. There's a lot of stuff, some extra stuff that'll be going on with that even she doesn't know about, that Dara doesn't know about as of yet.
Things that caught my attention was the golden arm, the golden gun that Dara had. And I mean, it really stands out with the aesthetics. And I know the colors may be a play on her name. Her name is Dara Pinkerston. And so there are pink highlights, purple highlights, different shades everywhere. And I think those aesthetics play really well. They blend really well with each other. And along with the setting of the city of New Orleans, scrolling through the website, and it shows that her detective agency is set up right in the middle of the French Quarter. And like you said, that's one of the things that I love in stories is when you can go to a physical location and be like, oh, I'm where Dara was when, she went and got this drink, or when she went and spoke to this character, interviewed this person, when she hunted this monster. And so the fact that her agency is set up in a real location, it's one that's big for me because I feel like that leads to a connection that you can make with people as they visit a place, as they visit a location. Speaking of the story, speaking of the settings again, going into some of the side characters, the website lists a couple of characters here. Can you tell me a little bit about her crew?
Yeah. She, like I said, she is, really, she's fresh to the city. She's fresh to detective work. She's kind of fresh to America. She is raised in the UK. She came with her family to America to go to college for university, and she gets out, and then less than a year later, her parents disappear. So she hasn't really, she's a blank slate. So we can kind of show kind of 80s American culture, to someone that is kind of like wow, this is all kind of crazy to me. So yeah, like she has the key to her bond, who is Trey, and he's a New Orleans local tech whiz, helps her like, kind of learn about her arm, and like helps her like learn about the city and, young Black people, because he's a young African American. So he kind of helps her with like the lingo and how people act and talk and the style and everything. He's kind of like her guide here. And then we have Lady M, and she's based on a real person that grew up in New Orleans, who is kind of considered like, legend has it that she might have actually been a witch. So, but she's a real person, that people were like afraid of because they thought she could do certain things and everything. So I kind of wanted to kind of have like her kind of be like her guide to like the spiritual or the supernatural side of New Orleans, and kind of have it be a play on, is she really a witch? Does she really have like a connection to otherworldly things? And, we can kind of play with that with a real person who, while she was alive, kind of played with it, herself to kind of, get her way, like, so to speak, back in the day. And then we have Frank, the bartender. He's kind of like her ear to the street. He's kind of the one that'll kind of bring her some of the cases, like people talk to bartenders. So, he kind of gets to hear, kind of the things that are going on in the street. And outside of the detective agency, his bar is going to be like kind of her second home base. So, because like right next to the office and the French Quarter. And, so she kind of has, and Lady M, her office is actually in the complex as well. So they're kind of people that are kind of close to her that all have certain like advantages, things that they can like give to her and, help her on her journey, because she is fresh to all of this. So she doesn't know what she's doing. She's going to need people to guide her. And, people, and these will be the kind of the people that, give you like that New Orleans flavor and kind of put her, up on game, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, and so with that, New Orleans has its own history of supernatural, whether it be vampires or werewolves or swamp monsters. What kind of thing is Dara dealing with?
Yes.
All of that.
That's why I wanted New Orleans, to be the setting, because the history of the strange, the bizarre, mysterious, it's there. Like, I mean, I remember going to New Orleans when I was a kid, and, the French Quarter was a lot less like touristy, back in the 80s and the 90s, you could really see some gnarly stuff down there. And, I saw stuff and I'll be like, turn to my dad and like, what is this? So I wanted to kind of recreate that like in the story, but actually make it real. Like wonder, what if, all the stories, all of the interesting tales that you hear about, things going bump in the night in New Orleans, wonder if they were actually real and someone actually had to face them and they were, running amok in the community, like what would really happen. And so this will explore, that just kind of making those legends, making them real. And I thought that would be like a pretty interesting twist on, something that I had grown up, hearing about and seeing. And I was like, yeah, wonder if, something really did come out of the swamp. Wonder if someone was using voodoo to control people and to do, nefarious things. So, we just kind of put them out there and kind of let Dara, who's like an outsider, kind of, like figure it out. She's a little like wary to it and apprehensive. She's more of a logical, like, if I can see it, then it's real. And so like I want to show her to her, and to make it real to her and then make it real to the readers.
And with the story being set in the 80s was a very cultural time for African Americans, whether it be the emergence of hip hop, the emergence of the style that came along with hip hop. You blend that with sort of a steampunk environment, and it's something that I don't believe I've ever seen told in a story. What inspired you to mix steampunk with 80s Black culture?
They're just like two things that I'm interested in. And it was something that I'd never seen put together, in a project for either. Like I wanted to use like the steampunk elements to give it a slight bit of like futuristic vibes, so we can have like certain things like technology wise and things of that nature to kind of push the story forward a little bit. But I wanted to set it in another one of the reasons why I wanted to set it in the 80s was to have it be easier for like some of this stuff to happen. Like, if I set it in modern times and there's a vampire running around at night, everyone just take out their phones and film it. Like if he was if a monster was terrorizing the French Quarter, it would be like, why didn't someone just call the cops or whatever, on their phone? I wanted to have it be where, no, it's not that easy. But I also wanted to have, Dara to be equipped with things that she could, use to take on these adversaries. So I was like, yeah, let's just put some steampunk in it, like that retro futuristic type of style to like, some of her inventions and her weaponry and, some of the environments to just give it, put a little tweak on the city of New Orleans, but definitely giving, a lot of 80s vibes because, music is a very important part of the project. And one of the things that I also will be including is like actual music into like the comic. It's something that I haven't seen done in a comic book before, but one of the ways I describe the project also is like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets New York Undercover, the TV show from the 90s where, it was, a detective story with, it would have like a couple of musical elements. Like at the start, they would have the setup for the episode like done to music. And then, in the middle, they would have like a performance at the club. And then at the end, during like the big fight scene or rescue scene or whatever's going on, they'd have like, some 90s hip hop and R&B like in it. And so that's something I'm trying to include as well. Like the intro of the story of the issue, the first issue, is going to be like the setup for the scene. And it's going to be to the song Smooth Operator by Shad. And so how it's going to kind of play out is there won't be any dialogue. There'll be like, you'll see, like, I don't want to give it away, but see a person and another person like interacting. But instead of them actually talking, each panel will have like a line from Smooth Operator that kind of fits into the vibe of what the action is. And that's something, it was kind of hard to kind of put together, but I'm a big like 80s and 90s music fan. So I wanted to incorporate that into it somehow. And we have a couple other scenes where there will be music and pictures or lyrics put to the panels instead of like a bunch of dialogue. And I think that's something like pretty original and something that'll make the project like really stand out on top of like the setting and, the time period.
Yeah, sure. And then with Dara, she's British. She's from the UK. I'm pretty sure that culturally, that's something she will most likely deal with in the story. Because I mean, going to New Orleans isn't just like moving to any other city. They have a culture of their own. From the second lines to bounce music to jazz to the French Quarter, the Creole influence on everything. How does Dara handle sort of that culture shock?
That's part of the storyline. Like, how does someone that, not only is she's British, she grew up well off. So she is, she grew up well off in Britain with her parents. And now she's in New Orleans, not well off without her. And so like the whole thing is just complete culture shock. And it's her trying to find herself in a completely new environment. And it's going to take like her like learning and growing, but also the characters are kind of helping and guiding her. And the city of New Orleans is going to be its own character in itself, and kind of it will be something that helps her grow and learn as well. And I'm really excited to kind of just show a lot of the elements of the city and have those kind of mold and like kind of guide the direction of her as a character.
Cool. Another thing that we see with a lot of stories is women main characters. The female protagonist has definitely, I'd say, within the past 10 years come to the forefront. Being a male writing a female character, where do you get the inspiration from? Do you have people that you go to and get ideas? How is it being a male writing a female character?
That's a good question. It was something that I took a lot of time to make sure that I was like approaching it like correctly, because I always wanted it to be a female-led story. Like from the very, very beginning, like I just knew that I wanted to do that. So what I did was really like I studied Misty. I read a lot of the Daughters of the Dragon, a lot of the Defenders, and just trying to kind of get a good feel of her as a character, and then kind of reverse engineer it into making like, what if we got Misty's like origin story? Like what happened before she became like a cop, and then before she lost her arm and became, a superhero. So, and that's kind of, that part is more like universal of like a young person's struggles, like, no matter who they are, what they are, just kind of like finding themselves and like learning who they are. But I wanted her to, like, I wanted to treat her with a ton of respect, because like, as this was my creation, like, I feel like she is like, my baby or something, so like, I want to make sure like I treat her like really well, and like she is represented to the best of my abilities. And I want her to be someone that people, like Black women in particular though, can look up to and can see themselves in. I have I've been getting such a good, strong reception from Black women from, on social media and stuff like that. Like people are they're like really excited about this character, which makes me excited and makes me want to make sure like, like I do her right. And it's been like a really interesting journey. Like, like I said, it was always going to be this way for me. And so like, I didn't really think of it as that big of a deal, because like I said, it was always going to be like that. But to kind of get that reception, from Black women, like comic book fans, and there are a lot out there. They're like underrepresented, like as far as like, do you know who they are, And so, I don't want to, leave them out in the cold, and, especially now that I see like how excited they are. So, she is like a really, like, I want her to be like super relatable. Like I said, like I want her, like she's a little bit of Whitley Gilbert, who I love. And she's a bit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's a lot of Misty, and she's a lot of Spider-Man in that relatability side. So I will make her like a well-rounded character, but also, she's going to be a bit of a blank canvas for us to kind of experience New Orleans and experience like this kind of crazy story.
Cool. Getting a bit into the monsters. I know you mentioned before that, we're going to explore some of the mythos, some of the lore around the monsters, the mysticism, a little bit of the voodoo of New Orleans. What can you tell us? Is there a particular big bad or antagonist main antagonist, or will it be more of a monster of the week style of story?
It's a little bit of both. It's definitely there's a monster of the week element, 'cause I kind of want to go through like a lot of like the classic like Universal monsters and just kind of put them all, give them like a New Orleans 1980s like hip hop twist. So we'll have like, we have like our werewolves, but it's not going to be like your standard like Wolfman thing. It's going to be closer, like he's going to be wearing like a varsity jacket and some J's like Michael Jackson in the Thriller video. The Frankensteins will have like a Gumby haircut instead of like the old, 30s flat top thing. Like I want to put like kind of like that urban twist and that 80s twist on those kind of classical movie monsters. But there's something bigger going. So in the first issue, we will be introduced to like a major bad that will, have a presence in the story as things kind of progress. And then there might be some other stuff that might be above his pay grade going on as well. So it's a bit of a conspiracy going on. There are things that it won't be as random as it seems. There will be some interconnectivity between, what's going on and why they're happening. Because one of the things also, like I'm trying to put out through the project is, what if this was all like happening like in the hood, and if monsters were randomly out there, but they're only kind of congregating and doing their thing in one particular area, why would that be? And who would benefit from something like that happening? So, I want to explore like, it's kind of some deeper issues, but through like the lens of having like, like literal monsters.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. And I definitely think it's one that can tell a very interesting story and one that'll capture a lot of people along with the art style, the fashion, the music, New Orleans itself, as a city being the character, the monsters. Like I said, this story kind of wrapped a lot of what I like personally in one, with it being the city of New Orleans, with it being monsters, with music, with fashion. And I know a lot of people will love that. Can you tell us a little bit about the release of the comic? When can they expect to see Dark Pink Comics, out there? Will there be, anything like a Kickstarter to jump us off, or when are you planning on releasing the first issue?
Yeah, definitely. We are in a pre-launch mode right now. We are accepting like reservations to kind of get things moving for the Kickstarter. You can go to get.darkpinkcomics.com to register and sign up for the mailing list. You can put down $1 deposit that's refundable. Get your spot in line for the Kickstarter, which we'll be releasing in mid to late January. I have a date in mind, but it's not exact. I got to talk to a couple people, pull a couple things here, a couple things there. But I should be able to announce that within the next couple of weeks. But it'll definitely be launching. The Kickstarter will definitely be launching in January. Hopefully it'll be a nice quick campaign so we can get the money, shut it down, and get right to the art and the printing. The script is already done. Issue number 1. The art team is ready. Like I said, Kari Evans is going to be doing the interiors. I literally just talked to another artist that's working on a legacy DC character right now to kind of do one of the, we're going to have like a special scene in the book I can't really talk about, but it's going to be in a different art style from everything else to kind of like, mess with people's minds a little bit. So I'm going to have another artist working on that. Super excited about that. And yeah, so that'll all be happening in January, and hopefully we can get the comic out early summer. Yeah, as soon as we get the money, like I said, we can get straight into the art and getting everything printed. And like the whole team is ready to go. Kari is, he's on me like, well, when can we do this? He's super excited, which is really cool to have literally the person that inspired this, like, be super excited about working on it. So, just check out the socials at Dark Pink Comics on Instagram. Is at Dark Pink Comics 1, the number 1 on Facebook, at Dark Pink Comics on X. And, we'll be making an announcement very, very soon on the actual Kickstarter launch.
Cool. What I'm going to do is I forgot at the beginning, I forgot to ask for the socials. So I'm going to just do a quick question that'll ask for the socials, and then I'll put that at the beginning.
Okay.
So, Chris, can you tell me where people can find Dark Pink Comics online, on social medias?
Yeah, for sure. We are on all the major socials. So X at Dark Pink Comics, Instagram at Dark Pink Comics, Facebook at Dark Pink Comics, the number 1. You can find our webpage is get.darkpinkcomics.com. So yeah, you can find us all on there. Going to be launching a YouTube page pretty soon as well with our trailer, and working on another like extended trailer. So that'll be at Dark Pink Comics as well. So yeah, just check us out.
Cool. And definitely as things go, shoot them over to me. We'll be happy to promote them, share them stories. I think we're most active on Instagram and YouTube. So we'll definitely support any way we can. And when the comic comes out, definitely come back and we can talk about it. I can do a review, and we can sit down and explore what's explored in issue number 1 and talk about what's to come for the future.
It sounds great to me. I would love to come back and talk to it. Yeah, I feel like, we're all such similar minds. We kind of like the same thing. So I think that you will like where we're headed with this.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything about Dara or Dark Pink Comics that you would want people to know that may catch their interest?
I just really think that this is a unique comic book. We have aspects that I haven't seen like in a comic before, with the music integration, like gonna have like multiple art styles within the issue. Setting is cool. Like, it's gonna look cool. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be funny. It's gonna be scary. It's gonna make you think. I really feel like this is something that, people that, even aren't really into comics can get into as well. Dara is super relatable. The setting is cool. Like, who doesn't like New Orleans? And yeah, I feel like, people will really, really get into it. So I hope everyone can check it out.
Cool. Well, again, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited and looking forward to Dark Pink Comics. It's one I'm definitely gonna get that first issue and be talking about it. And for everybody, again, go follow Chris, follow Dark Pink Comics. Again, can you plug your socials for us one more time?
Yeah, my personal social is at Talented Mr. Ford, Mr. just the MR, on X and Instagram. And the socials for Dark Pink is at Dark Pink Comics and at Dark Pink Comics, the number 1, for Facebook.
Cool. And again, thank y'all for listening. Be on the lookout. I'll definitely be shouting out Chris and Dark Pink Comics as more information comes out. Follow us on all social medias at The Side Quest Hustle on everything. Join our Discord if you want to be a part of an interactive community. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank y'all. We will catch y'all next week. Peace.